Right, let's get into covering some of the bits from 2019 with the 2020 at the end. I've garnered much from this past year, from a personal growth wise, and I'm proud of the body of work I've delivered this past year more than others. Sometimes people forget that I'm learning as I go along as much as you all. I'm soul developing in growth also. And those lessons and learnings are never finished. It is a continuous cycle, not only for this lifetime, but your next. Your work that you do now is a pay it forward motion and action that will have major consequences for you all in the future. The other years I've done shows was about laying the foundation to then be able to build the house of truth upon it. As 2017 closed out, I knew the quickening of everything would unfold. And after that date in November of that year, it was a statement of, it is too late for the sleepers, as we call them, to catch up. But remember, for progress, pioneers, or way showers as I like to call them, always have to create the path for the others to follow. Now that statement brought the typical reactions of we can't leave them behind and the feeling of loss, which is atypical of many of us to focus on the loss and not the gains. To focus on what might have been instead of what can be. And that level of thinking has to change going forward. How far have we come is the focus, and then how far can we go? No one was left out of this progression movement. Those not in it chose to be that way. And it's no one's fault except their own. Ponderings increased again last year. Oh, the ponderings. Including the recent classic that has caused much gurring, harumphs, hair pulling and angry or frustrated memes. As the saying goes, what goes up must come down. But what comes down has a missing space-time currently, and this can be tested by yourself. You will see, or as the case may be, you won't see it briefly. Maybe I'll answer that later in the show. Maybe I won't. I can feel the grrring going on again. Right. THI went on a steep learning curve in 2018, and people were thinking, where does this all end? As revelation after revelation came out of the dark and into the light. And some thought 2018 was a peak of it all, or the peak of it all. And many thought they have a grasp of things then, and of what is and has gone on. Oops. Because 2019 laid that to waste, as show after show revealed heavier and deeper pieces one after the other. Thursday shows almost became as prevalent as the must listen to shows that are on our thinkdifferent.thepeoplesclub.org website. We went deeper into all about us, because that is the key to understanding our show. We can argue over politics, earth is flat or round, whether magic is good or not. It isn't. It was given to us by the gods to destroy humanity. But that is a journey of discovery for all individuals to find out themselves. whether the moon is natural or engineered, whether the trust is real or not, mass arrests happening or not, or this politician or that politician is more corrupt than the other. None of it in the real scheme of things matters. What matters is that every individual on the planet has the 5 basic needs in life without the need to struggle or find the most bizarre or heinous ways to make money just to exist. After attaining the 5 basic needs in life, you have all you need in life to grow the self. Knowledge needs to be garnered and consumed like a sponge, then wring out what is not needed. A common saying on our show, and it's also a common saying for Kim when she's talking to clowns, and what happens next? Mass arrests happen, then what? Replace with more corrupt peoples, or will genuine people stand up and replace them? The trust funds come out. What happens next? Are people ready to look after the treasures and the life force energy, or waste it in a plethora of ill-prepared or self-serving genders and ideals? I will ask a question back to the members. If the trust funds came out in late April as we formed the THI state and country groups, were you ready? Be honest. The second question is, are you better prepared now? So the key to it all is preparation of the self to be able to perform the tasks ahead. And in a world of programming, competitive and comparative mindsets, greed, not need, the focus on the status of the self, that was always going to be a difficult proposition. But the shows have helped to get you to think, really think. Most people just react to the headlines and accept it as the truth. No, that is an assumption, which is a statistical analysis based on probability, which is not truth. Lots of words get bandied about in the alt media, like consciousness, 4 and 5D, love and light, red pilling. And yet too few, when asked what, when or where is it, understand what they're actually saying. The words without understanding becomes a meme, which is memetics and soft MK Ultra brain entrainment. This show's not about me, Kim, the trust, the funding, the council or the UPU. It's about you and us. Nothing more and nothing less. And humanity's thinking levels are way short. Our ability to see and understand things as a collective, even on a basic level, is chronically lacking. And so this show, we started with the basics again, pondering on things, which leads to critical thinking, which leads to future thinking. The past is gone. It offers us nothing except a placeholder of what we can improve on going forward. So what happens next? Is the great question and conundrum to be applied in all walks and aspects of life. This show is about preparing you all for that phase. We're now in that phase. The object was not to elevate Kim or me, but us all. For too long now, humanity has dragged each other down into the gutter, that we never really needed a control system. We have done that to ourselves. Very nicely, I might add. But that in our group has changed. And our role is to expand that out into the masses. Immigration in the future will not be from country to country. It will be from their world into ours. Perhaps now that makes much more sense to you all. The object is to make all people important and also replaceable, to allow for the fluid transitions in all aspects of life. Not one Neo, but millions of Neos. That way there's a flow of progression, not a stagnation and the spell-casting weight club and a thought subset pattern of someone else will do it. The few who have stepped up into the prominent roles carry a heavy burden, requiring much sacrifice in their lives because too many won't do the step up. Mired in the little me syndrome, which in effect is a lazy ass cop-out. Because what makes me or anybody else more important or capable than you? Ultimately, it comes down to what you value. Are you valued? Do you value yourself? What is real and what is not? So what is value? In the modern society, the term value is beyond corrupted and corruptible. There are so many examples in life to mention, but we'll just cover a few for this show. Home values has become a millstone around our necks to feed the greed elements within society. Which is why I had the idea for the TPC Village, where the house prices are builder's cost plus 10%. And the price goes up or down depending on the inflation rate only, not the deliberately engineered harvesting traps of energy called the boom and bust cycle that everyone is aware of, yet too few act on it. I warned people in my circle back in 2006 that home prices would drop 40%, and people in my circle laughed. Not for long they didn't. And at the time I had my house up for sale for $320,000, and I reduced it after 2 to 3 weeks to $285 and sold it the next day. I was happy. Friends called me stupid for throwing money away, but I'd only paid $172,000 for that home just 2 years earlier. So in essence, not only did I live in that home rent-free for 2 years, but walked away with a nice profit to be used for something else. But others in my circle wanted more and more money, and that's where the greed factor kicks in. And that greed factor cost them heavily. Less than 12 months later, that same home was $150,000 less than I sold mine for. And people in my circle were no longer laughing and got angry at me for jumping out at the right time. But I did tell them it would plunge 40%, only to find I was low in that estimation and it was near 60 to 70% drop. But that type of action, where I made money that time, there are other times when I lost much on home transactions, did and does not sit well with me. It's playing a lottery game with people's homes and lives, which is one of the 5 basics in life. Too few win and most lose, and pay a heavy cost in their lifestyles. And it's the cause of much illness, worry and mental instability in people, a reduction of the self, and also plays heavily into the number of divorces as well, and the impacts it has on the children. And all in all, it's very destructive in so many ways. So why are we participating in that way where eventually we all lose? We're doing the bankers' greed program for them, and it ends up with people on the street in mobile homes, which I got a complaint about recently, stating I was denigrating people living in mobile homes. Wrong thinking. That is reacting to the headline again and not looking deeper into why that is a problem. I am denigrating the system that has forced so many into living in what is essentially a death trap. There's only one door. Day in, day out, mobile homes, or caravans as I know them, to me are 1 week vacation establishments, not permanent living, because that is all people can afford. That's the problem. It's the system that creates it. And one heavy gust of wind and there goes your home flying down the street. Seen enough of it in Florida. But one of the biggest lacks in real value is creativity. The world of arts, crafts and music in particular. Vast quantities of time placed within those disciplines, and yet so little in terms of monetary values of the hours put in to produce it. Unless, of course, you're in the so-called upper circle of people with too much money buying all kinds of shit wrapped up in a memetics word as fashion, which means to form or give shape to, or more indicatively, conforming to a pre-selected taste. This is an example of programming. Somebody else telling you this is fashionable, which is a fancy word for you must buy this item. And we will massively overcharge you for the value of this item. And yet so many fall for it is the sad aspect. Personally, the what is called high-end fashion wants me to do my MeWe GIF all day, personally. As fashion, like art, is predetermined by people with money but no sense, and yet we follow it. We have an array of talented artists within our own group, and yet if they all spent the next 10 years painting or drawing and then selling their life force energy of that work, it would generate considerably less than one of Van Gogh's crap paintings. Why is that? A lack of what is real value is what. Only a complete half-wit can look at a Van Gogh painting and think, wow, that is fantastic, I will bid $4 million for it. You know, I wonder whether he really lost his ear and it wasn't his eyes, because they're no better than some mildly talented 8th grade student could do, and less talented than some in our own group. But it's the branding. It only takes some engineered think tank group like the Council of Foreign Relations or the 300 Committee to create a brand. Tell people this is a must-have item or you're not cool or fashionable, over-promoting it, and it sells to a gullible public. A public trying to act all sophisticated and not being themselves. It's all in the words again, is it not? They create a brand and brand us with it. Just like the branding of the cattle, is it not? Reinforcing the "we are the chattel" meme. Is money value? It depends at which angle you come at that question, does it not? It has implied value, as without it you can't survive in most cases. So from that aspect, yes, it does. But it's not real money, is it? It doesn't pay off your debts, only discharges them. From other aspects, it is a control and class system. Have and have-nots. Creates greed, not need. And for the famous, it oozes out of their every pore, and then people get envious. Some then go into a life of crime to copy that lifestyle, because you won't get that lofty height working for a $10 to $15 an hour at McDonald's. Or the most common aspect is to go into massive amounts of debt to copy a lifestyle created by the branding people in magazines and adverts. But it has no value, does it? Ponder on this, and you personally win the lottery. And then you repeat what many other lottery winners' traits have done. You buy the big house, buy the vacation home, go on several vacations around the world, overindulge yourself in the must-have items that have been branded for you. Buy cars, boats, planes, whatever. And it's all great and living the high life. But what happens next? Likely you're not with the same partner, or the same friends either, as you're mixing in so-called higher circles now, who are essentially vacuous people out of touch with reality. What that lottery win did was brought you was a world of fakery and illusion. Look at me, I'm rich, whilst ignoring there are many in the world who are suffering. Whilst the lottery winner, like the elite, gorges on everything and leaves scraps in their wake. Money is a poor exchange for what it really stands for. Your life force energy. An hour of your time is equal to an hour of anyone else's time. Who decides that cleaning the streets, toilets or offices is only worth a pittance? Yet sitting at a desk talking shit, acting important and clicking pens whilst abusing the secretary is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Well, I studied for this and got degrees. Ooh. And so I should earn more, they will say. My reply was, you were given shite to learn and followed it. Like doctors, they spent 7 years training, and yet not 1 minute is spent learning cures, which is the definition of their very job, to cure people or make people better, is it not? Not exactly with that training, is it? Your PhDs, degrees, certificates means jack if it doesn't provide some sort of benefit for the all. I have little to no degrees, certificates or other system pieces of paper. Does that make me unintelligent? So what is value? Well, people with loads of money are or rarely look happy. Why? Because after you've bought everything with pieces of paper, there is still key ingredients of life missing that money will never buy. Love, compassion, caring and sharing, or a life, or more importantly, time. Time is the value. All time is equal, and so subsequently all professions' time and value should be equal as well. Not always possible given the variety of factors, but something society should work on in the next 2 generations, as it means more will have an equal share. That is value.